Some folks, in the words of my old mate Paul Arker, are a bunch of untrustworthy bastards. Those sort of customers every small time scrappy has to deal with. You know the ones who either can't or have no intention of coughing up the cash. The lengths they will go to, and the bizarre situations it can lead to, often beggar belief. In previous videos, I recorded encounters with a thieving barman, a non-paying Irish butcher, and a giant haystack-sized thug with a Fiat Fiorino van, but they were just the tip of the iceberg. From an early age, I learned sometimes you just won't get your money. A kid from my school days was starting a bit of a band. He wanted my electric guitar and amp, but could he pay in three lumps? The first two instalments came no issue, but then he managed to get his first gig booked and needed the kit that weekend. Would it be okay if I dropped it off at the venue and he'd give me the rest of the money he owed on Monday? I went and watched them play, and it all went very well. But Gary, the lad, he was a no-show on the Monday, of course, and by the time I caught up with him again months later, it became clear that what his money was being spent on. A tubby kid from Ayr Estate delivered the local paper, this on his Yamaha DT50 MX. Seeing Nick and I working on a few motorbikes in the garage, he asked for a rear light lens for his bike. Fiver, mate, and I will fit it for you. Free paper for a fortnight, he countered, and then proceeded to dodge our house every day for bloody weeks. I spotted him parked up outside the local chip shop, took my Swiss Army knife out and unscrewed the lens from his bike, grinning at him through the chippy window as I walked off. Would you believe he told his father, and the law turned up later that evening, trying to arrest me for theft of my own bloody part. Danny, who was a mate of a mate, had a Yamaha RD125 LC that had blown up, and he needed a cheap bike to get around on. Happily, I had a Honda CB100N for sale, 200 quid for this little gem with a full MOT. In the end, a ton was agreed upon in the stricken Yamaha. And in over 60 quid, Danny was just nipping to the bank, mate, to grab the other 40. So my friend Martin followed him down there on his RS100. An hour later, he returned, but he was without Danny. He just bloody roared off on that CB100N, round the corner and out of sight. I couldn't keep up. That was the explanation. I called at his place to collect the rest of the cash, but both he and the two bikes were now missing. Several years later, and on collecting a Triumph TR7 car from a garden in the town, the bohemian elderly lady owner told me she had a scrap motorbike in her shed and wanted that to go as well. There, under a pile of old junk, was my CB100N, but minus its engine. Getting older, I should have grown wiser to these cock-ups, but alas, trust was still sometimes misplaced. A builder dropped off a battered red phone box in my yard. The thing was rough, missing its glass, and graffiti adorned each panel, but the weight was considerable. I'd heard stories of folk turning these into shower cubicles, these in swanky flats, so kept the thing in a corner in the hope somebody would want to. Word of my ownership must have travelled, and a fella in a Mark II Transit tipper arrived to view it. Maybe even have a deal. I knew him vaguely. Did I want to buy the tipper lorry, he asked. I said I did, and the deal he had in mind was that he have the phone box and £150 cash. We touched hands. I was to load the big red lump on the back, and he would take it to his customer, then return to drop the lorry off to me, pick up the cash, and I'd drop him back at his house. Seemed straightforward enough. Half he chugged in the transit, and I never bloody saw him in the yard again. My neighbour and I went several times to his council shithole to have a go at extracting the money. Always friendly, the big man would invite us into his filthy kitchen, grease from the pans on the stove all running down the cooker to the disgusting lino. The smell of dog piss, stale fag smoke heavy in our nostrils, but poverty was always claimed each time, and no cash ever got offered. That transit was long gone as well. Pond life are one thing for shithousery, it's to be expected from them, but the so-called pillars of the community are harder to swallow it from. A publican wanted his MGB stored for a few weeks whilst he moved pubs. I recovered the car and stashed it in the corner of my yard, charging 30 quid a month. He paid up like a greengrocer for the first few months, but gradually the visits became less frequent and he started bouncing my phone calls. With over 6 months' money due, I did all the official paperwork requirements. I advised him by registered letter that it was going to be scrapped. Wise enough to bluff him, I kept the car for an extra week, and sure enough, certain as February flew, 2 days after the date I had quoted, and with still no payment paid, up popped the coppers trying to arrest me, this for theft again. I just showed them the MG, the pile of paperwork that had been sent, and explained what was going on. Silence thereafter, and I stripped this car and scrapped it out. There are loads more stories similar, but in the end, I trusted no one, took talk as just that, and you have to have no friends in business if you ever want to get paid. Hello there, thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this one, would like to see a few more, please like, share and subscribe. It is appreciated, and it does mean a lot. If you'd like some rare merchandise, then please go to andyourpointis tmail.com, the address of which is on the screen now. All the best to you. Thank you very much.